I gained weight on a ketogenic diet. I was doing keto. I was doing it all right. I was eating 80% fat. I ate as much fat as I could. In fact, I even pushed my fats up to 250 grams, 300 grams. But I still didn't lose weight. I didn't lose body fat. What's going on here? I can't tell you how many times I've seen this comment. I can't tell you how many times I've had clients come to me who've worked with some of these keto gurus out there who are just repeating ad nauseum things that are not facts and doling out cookie cutter plans, and these people are not getting the results they want. In fact, many of these people are gaining weight when they're eating 250, 300 grams of fat a day. What is going on here? I thought ketosis makes you lose fat. I thought you couldn't burn fat without being in ketosis. If I'm in ketosis, why am I gaining weight? This is a common thing. You can gain body fat on a ketogenic diet. So let's get that out of the way. First of all, you can gain fat on keto. You can gain weight on keto. If you eat in excess of calories, your body will store fat. Now, I'm not saying that, like, yes, calories in, calories out. You just tell people to restrict their calories and that's all you got to do. It's not so simple, obviously. Not all calories are created equal. Not all the macronutrients have the same effects hormonally on the body. And there's a lot more going on than just, hey, tell people to restrict their calories and the obesity crisis is done. We know this through observation, through history. But we've got to flesh this out. We've got to get the basics in line. So a ketogenic diet for fat loss is different from a ketogenic diet for medical purposes. Medical keto developed for kids with refractory epilepsy. In the 1920s, they found that this diet was able to keep seizures away in these poor kids who were having uncontrollable drug-resistant epileptic seizures. And this is almost miraculous for these kids, that they could administer a diet and completely change their neurology and have them have more balanced neurochemistry and live life without fear of constantly having seizures. It's a horrific thing. So that's what a medical ketogenic diet is. 80% fat comes from the initial literature on this application of ketosis. And the reason that such high fat is required for these people on this version of a medical ketogenic diet is these kids have problems maintaining and gaining weight, right? They still need to grow. Their growth plates are still open. They're still developing. You calorie restrict a developing child and they can develop all kinds of health issues. So this is a problem. These kids need very high fat. They don't want to lose weight. Now, one of the side effects of keto is decreased hunger, right? It's not just for epilepsy. It's not just for balancing neurochemistry. It's not just for decreasing inflammation. There's other side effects. And the fat loss side effect, the ability to tap into your own body fat, to go long periods of time without food, to have stable blood sugar throughout the day, to have a sustainable, enjoyable diet that allows you to consistently tap into body fat is what keto offers. What it doesn't offer is a magical state that makes you burn body fat regardless of how much food you're eating. All right? Keto allows us to naturally and creates a situation where we'll naturally restrict calories in most cases. Most cases, right? Because not everybody gets huge decreases in hunger. But it seems like most people do, especially people who have a lot of body fat to lose, right? But when you're leaner and you have less body fat on you, you do feel more hunger. At least I've noticed that in my life. So anyways, ketogenic diet for fat loss is not 80% fat like a ketogenic diet for refractory epileptic children and a medical purpose, right? Keto for fat loss, we want to be burning fat from here, from the body. We don't want to be stuffing as much fat in our mouth as we can, because if we do that, we're not going to burn the fat from our body. So keto allows us to safely, effectively, and long-term create a barely noticeable deficit, which allows us to burn more body fat, right? You get into a state of ketosis, your inflammation drops, you lose some water weight, it's great. The metabolic state favors the burning of fat. You can go long periods of time without meals, without having to, change your blood sugar through infusing glucose dietarily. You get stable blood sugar. A lot of people see improvements in mood, improvements in cognition, improvements in their general sense of well-being, right? But the fat loss thing is kind of the most important part for at least 90% of the people who contact me who are interested in doing a ketogenic diet. All right, when we made our book, the Ketogenic Edge cookbook, my wife's cookbook, she spent over a year and a half developing this, and I said we because I actually wrote some of the chapter intros and stuff, but she worked her butt off on this. We made sure to make all the recipes fat loss friendly, because when we started it, we noticed that most of the material online, most of the stuff out there, are calling for copious amounts of fat, right? People have been kind of duped through the rhetoric that attracts them to this diet, right? It's like high fat diet. Eat butter, your pants fall off. Eat more fat, lose more weight. These slogans, these clever marketing copy things that get attention, while they do have a sliver of truth in it, right? Because in a ketogenic diet, fat is the main source of energy. When you induce ketosis, when you first start out, it's kind of best to be more near maintenance calories, to not create a huge deficit to where you're stressing the body out during this phase of adaptation, where you have to create more mitochondria, where you have to enter this whole new metabolic pathway that you're not so used to doing, because we've had a constant supply of carbohydrates our whole life available 24 hours a day right up the street, right? So when you do start out, there's a hummingbird. You see it? Where'd it go? Check it out. Alright, get on with it. I like hummingbirds, they're awesome. Anyways, so keto for fat loss. The ketogenic diet for fat loss is different than a medical ketogenic diet. If you eat 200 grams of fat and you're a 5'4" woman who's 225 pounds trying to lose body fat, I will say straight up you're eating way more fat than you need, and you're asking to gain weight. Right? If we eat in excess of food, we will store fat even in a ketogenic state. So, when you're doing a ketogenic diet, the most important macro to eat for fat loss, it's all about context, right? Putting this in context. For fat loss, if you're doing a ketogenic diet, the most important macro for you to eat isn't fat, it isn't carbs, it isn't the most important food for you to eat, it's not butter, it's not MCT oil. The most important food for you to eat is actually protein. And this is the opposite of what you've been told by many gurus who've got you fearing protein. And I'm not saying a ketogenic diet is a high protein diet, right? Somebody's going to misrepresent this, as they often do, so conveniently. Somebody will misrepresent what I'm saying and say that I'm saying eat a high protein diet. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you need sufficient protein. And a lot of these people are telling you to undereat protein, and it can be dangerous metabolically, and you're depriving yourself of the most satiating macronutrient. Protein fills you up, makes you full. Fiber does that as well, but protein does it way better. So by far, the most important macro to eat for fat loss on keto is protein. You have fat on your body to burn. We all have fat on our body to burn. Now in the beginning, when you're inducing ketosis, it's better to be a little bit closer to maintenance calories. So protein is the most important macro. Here's how I usually recommend figuring out how much protein you need. Now across the board, we've all got a minimum protein requirement. Some of us prefer less, some of us prefer more. If you're resistance training, you might need more. If you're older, if you're elderly, you might require more protein. But most individuals will cover their protein needs by 1.6 grams per kilogram of your lean body mass in protein, or 0.8 grams per pound of your lean body mass in protein will be absolutely sufficient even for those resistance training. And that's well within the ketogenic diet macros that will allow you to be in ketosis. So for fat loss, if your goal is fat loss, first of all, understand that more ketones do not equal more fat loss. In the beginning, when you're short on mitochondria to actually utilize those ketones, when you're short on the metabolic machinery to use the fatty acids, then we usually see higher blood ketones. But it seems that as adaptation progresses, we use them. You're soaking up those ketones in your muscles, you're using them. So there seems to be a trend of super high ketones elevated in the beginning and then tapering down into a reasonable amount afterwards. But you have to understand that more ketones doesn't mean more fat loss. You can artificially elevate ketones by eating as much coconut oil and MCT and throwing butter down the gullet all day long. You can elevate your blood ketones, but that does not mean you will burn body fat, right? If you're doing keto for fat loss, the goal is to burn body fat. That doesn't mean only eat protein, starve yourself with a protein-sparing modified fast. That's not what I'm recommending. Get sufficient protein. Keep the carbs low enough. Get those carbs from leafy green vegetables, fibrous, nutrient-dense, whole, unrefined foods, and fat will make the energy portion of your diet. Now, part of that energy needs to come from the body if we're going for fat loss. But in the beginning, you don't want to go in too much of a deficit, so you want to be at about maintenance calories. So there you go. You calculate how much protein you need. That stays fixed. Fat moves according to your goals. Carbs stay the same. Super basic, super simple. Make sure you're getting your electrolytes in, and you'll be all right. Okay, so that's what I got for you today. If you're interested in more, check out primaledgehealth.com. Highly suggest checking out our book, my wife's cookbook, the Ketogenic Edge cookbook, a training manual for low-carb, ketogenic, and paleo cuisine. All right, so we call this a training manual because it legitimately is a training manual. It's not just a list of recipes. It's not just a list of rehashed recipes that everybody's got online. We spent time and energy putting this together. My wife spent over 1.5 years on this book. All the recipes have fat loss friendly macros. And that was one of the things that we really wanted to achieve with this book, is make sure that it's got fat loss friendly macros, because we know that 90% of you out there doing keto are doing it to lose body fat. But of course, in the book, we also show you how you can easily adjust and change recipes to have more or less fat or protein according to your macronutrient needs. So check out the Ketogenic Edge cookbook. That's available only on our website. You're not gonna find it on Amazon, not gonna find it anywhere else. That's available exclusively at primaledgehealth.com. So yeah, check that out. A ketogenic diet is really not as complicated as we're making it out to be. I don't understand why so many people are making this out to be some freak show complicated thing on the internet. I don't know, maybe it's an intellectual territory thing and people, I don't know. Anyways, keto, relatively simple. Get enough protein in. If you're doing it for fat loss, protein's the most important macro to eat. Carbs, keep those low enough, 20, 30 grams net carb max for most people will get you into ketosis, and fat makes up the energy portion of the diet. More fat on the plate means you burn less fat from the belly. Less fat on the plate means you burn more fat from your belly.